Hello again, everybody. I'm tried to talk about a few things here today. They also that help form a bit of my life. This is one of those things. And before I get started, my son, I've been asking people for advice on how I can make the videos better, or how are the videos, how do you like them, this kind of stuff. And I got a really good message last night from a friend of mine whom I haven't known very long, but I have I've worked with him in reference to he's a client of mine, and I worked with him when it comes to outdoor education. I gave him some bushcraft courses and this kind of stuff, and he sent me a really nice message last night, and it was very nice to have gotten it from him, and as you know, it was really nice. It was really nice. But my son, I've been asking for advice and from people about how to improve things, or am I making any mistakes? What can I do better? This kind of stuff. And my son told me, quit touching my hair and stay on topic. So I'm going to try to do that today. Today I want to talk to you about something that happened to me when I was 15 years old. I'll give you a little backstory. I'm from a small town in Louisiana called Dry Prong. And there is a grand total of 250 people in this little town, but I live 5 miles outside of it, my family, on the Richards farm. And my grandpa Owen Richard and my grandma Bobby, these are my step grandparents, and my grandma Mamie, the mother of my grandma Bobby. They've all passed away sadly now, but they were some strong influences in my life actually. And my dad married a lady named Judy, and she has been a great mom to me since I was probably about 12 years old, 13 years old, something like that, and maybe a little older, but she's been a great mom to me this whole time. And my dad's passed away 5 years ago, but my mom's still there. My mom Judy's she's still trucking along and still hanging in there. And I spoke to her last night to give her the news about that I found an apartment, this kind of stuff. But when I was 15 years old, well, my parents they had these best friends that live right down the road from them, and I can say their names because sadly they've all passed away. There's Mr. Bobby Dunn and his wife Annie Dunn. They both passed away now, but they were close friends of my parents. I think my mother saw and talked to Miss Annie every day. My mother drove the school bus for Georgetown High School, which I graduated from in 1987. And I think Miss Annie, I don't know what she did. I think she was a stay-at-home mom. I'm not really sure. But anyway, Miss Annie had, Mr. Bobby had a son named Andrew from a previous marriage. And he was a paratrooper at Fort Bragg in an artillery unit. He was a mechanic. And they had two daughters together, Stacy and Shannon. Well, we used to all hang out together. They're right down the road, about, I don't know, a couple of miles away. We used to walk over their house and down the dirt road to where they lived. And my parents used to hang out there. They'd hang out at our place, my parents and them. They always played a card game together. Although I don't remember the name of the card game. I think it's called Spades. I think it's what it is. I've never played it. I never figured it out. Never was interested in me. But they played every day, or at least every weekend. And there were one couple of several couples that were inspirational. Major lights in my life. Growing up. Well, anyway, Andrew. This was the end of August, and Andrew got a 4-day weekend to come home. And he came home and surprised us. This was like the first day of school, that Friday. And we all had our brand new clothes that we just got shopping, brand new Levi's and shirts and that kind of stuff, and shoes. And anyway, so he came home and surprised us and said, hey, listen, you want to come out with us? We're going to go into town and have something to eat. So I was 15 years old. I really looked up a lot to Andrew because he was a paratrooper, something that I wanted to do in my career in the Army. And so Larry, who also later on became a paratrooper, he grabbed his old car. I think it was a Chevy Nova, I believe, or something like that. And he came over, and he was dating Stacy, and she was 16. He was, I think he was 17. And Andrew, who was like 18, I think he was 19 years old, Andrew, or 20. And then myself. So we all jumped in and we drove to town. And the first thing they did, they dropped by a place called Daiquiri Hut, which made these daiquiris, but they were all alcohol, laced. So they grabbed up some daiquiris, and then we stopped by Burger King, and I grabbed myself a chocolate shake and a hamburger, a Whopper with cheese and some fries, and I think they also grabbed some food. I don't remember; it's been so long ago. But and then we cruised around Alexandria for a minute, and then we began coming back home. It's about a 30-minute drive, maybe 45-minute drive. And anyway, we stopped off at a place on the way back in the woods, which was a fire tower, and which overlooks the area around Dry Prong. It's just on highway. It's just between. I think it's on Highway 123, I believe it is, or 124, something like that. It's off of there. I used to live off of Highway 8, the Bentley Colfax Highway, and it was between there and Dry Prong. So anyway, but the problem was that they began drinking and consuming all this alcohol, and I asked them to let me drive, and they wouldn't let me drive, and I asked them to get out of the car after we had taken off, and they wouldn't let me. I didn't want to be left there by myself, with a bunch of drunk people taking off either, so I reluctantly got into the car, and the next thing I remember were the headlights hitting some pine trees in a place called Dead Man's Curve, which is off of 122 between Dry Prong and Verda, and back on the way to our house. And I remember us just sort of going into those trees, and I think we were going about 70 miles per hour. And the wreck was pretty drastic. In fact, it killed Andrew immediately, split the car right down the middle. I was sitting on the back seat without my seatbelt on. Stacy was laying on the back seat because she was passed out, and Larry was driving. And it immediately hit this tree, 4 trees in total, because there were these huge pines right there on the side of the road, and the car just exploded, throwing me, I think, about 60 feet, 20 meters. And I do remember seeing some flickering of light. I think it was from a fire. I could hear the hiss of the motor, which had been thrown also, and it was right next to me. And I could hear Larry holding and crying for Stacy. The next thing I remember was, I think I do remember some, the ambulances coming or something like that. I don't remember speaking to anybody necessarily, although I was told that I did answer some questions to the police, actually, the state trooper and the sheriff's department who arrived. And my grandfather, whom I led the story out with, he listened, almost 24/7 to the scanner and the police scanner, and he heard the accident and called my dad and said there's been an accident, because on the scanner they mentioned the Dunn family name, actually. And so my dad, who was a deputy coroner, quickly jumped in the car, I believe with my mom, and they drove out there to where we were at. I was brought to Rapides General Hospital in Alexandria, and I do remember being awake a little bit in the ambulance or in whatever they transported me in. I don't know if it was, I don't know how it was exactly. And I remember, but I do remember being brought into the emergency room, and the doctor, I was laying on the gurney, and the doctor asked me, had I been drinking? And I said no. And he says, have you eaten anything? And then I threw up on him. And then he basically said, with chocolate milk all over him from what I could see, and bits of burger and this kind of stuff, he said, no, he's not been drinking. And so they put me in an emergency room, in the ICU, actually, unbeknownst to myself that at that time that Stacy and Andrew were killed in the accident, and Larry luckily did not even have a scratch. I remember laying in the bed, and the people were coming in, checking on me, just kind of like that, but I was in some severe pain on my right side of my body, severe pain. And what I hadn't known at that time was that I'd broken my foot, broken my back, it fractured my pelvis in 4 places, broke my right arm, and I had a concussion. But I could feel the pain. I do remember that, and the pain was primarily in my leg, in my foot. Well, they never put a cast or anything, just sort of wrapped me up, and they cut my clothes off of me, which was a pity because I just bought them like the week before. I was really upset about that. But and I bought it with money that I'd earned that summer working at a fast food restaurant called Mr. Cook's. I worked the entire summer trying to earn a keep to make up for because we were a big family and my parents couldn't afford to clothe all of us at one time. It was just too much money. So we as kids we got jobs and we did it ourselves so. And that also we got to choose what we wanted. So, but anyway, I remember my pastor coming in. Really, now I'm gonna tell you something I'm gonna do a little backstory on him. My pastor's named Richard DeBusk. We called him Brother Dick, and he was also my 7th grade Louisiana history teacher. And he was terrible. I mean, he was a good teacher, but he was tough on us. I mean, he paddled you. I got paddled one time just because because it was sort of like, well, you hadn't been paddled or something. I don't remember why, but he hit me one time. He had 60,000 votes on his piece of wood. Nowadays you had you go to prison, but back then, you didn't mess up in the class anymore. That's for sure. Anyway, he came in and spoke to me a bit, and I think they were worried that how I would react to the finding out about the passing of Stacy and Andrew, but I knew something told me that I knew this already, and I told him I said I know that they're gone, already, in the conversation we had, and then I remember my dad coming in saying, "Is everything all right?" I said, "You know what? No, I'm hurting a lot in my right leg." And my dad drags this doctor in. He goes, "He's hurting. Fix him." My dad was a pretty brother. He was a pretty tough guy when it came down to it. I mean, he was. Yeah, he dragged him in there, and then I got some morphine, and I remember that doctor's face where they put the morphine in the IV in my arm, and how my body just heated up, and I went to sleep, and then I woke up in a room which I spent the next month in. Still went through several days of a lot of pain, and they started giving me Demerol. They gave me 4 shots of Demerol over past, I guess it was over 4 days. And I remember they decided to give me some pills, and they just weren't working for me, because I remember the warmth of that Demerol, that morphine going through my veins, just heating my body and just going to sleep. But I remember I was really upset. I was not happy, about the pain I was going through, and they were like, "Well, you got to let the pills. We can't keep giving you this medication." But then the doctor came in, and I saw his face. I remember so well the feeling of that warmth coming over my veins, over my body from my arm, just by seeing him. And although I don't remember his face anymore, it's probably a good thing. But I wish I did. Yeah, he it's so psychological, I realized, and a lot of the stuff I was dealing with pain-wise. So I learned over that at 15 years old how to deal with a lot of pain, actually. And over my life, physical pain I had to deal with, but I managed to get through it. Even my back's been the biggest hindrance of pain. But I spent 30 days in the hospital. My birth mother, Linda, would come in. My mom, and Judy and my dad would come in, and family would come in and see me. They always brought food with them because I wouldn't eat. And also, another backstory is that whole summer, my brother Mark and I and Paul and Ken and even Kevin, we worked out like every day, with weights and every kind of stuff. So we were really I'd really gained a lot of muscle mass that summer, just working out with all of us together on the weight bench and this kind of stuff. And then it all just sort of just melted away over that 1 month. Actually, it was 3 months, because I spent 1 month in the hospital. And then my mom got a bed for me for home, and I spent another 2 months. This was September, October. At the end of October, they brought me to. Actually, it wasn't. It was like after, I think, after a couple of weeks. I left the hospital at the end of September, I believe, or something like that. And then I remember my parents going shopping real quick to get some stuff, and I was in these hospital clothes, the pants and I remember being in front of a mirror in a shop in my wheelchair, because I wasn't supposed to walk yet. And this is my first time in a wheelchair, by the way. And seeing how much I'd lost. I was so pale and not even the color I have now. I mean, I'm a very white skinned person, I mean, but I was just so pale looking and probably the same amount of hair that I have now too. But I'm sorry, Nico, I touched my hair. But yeah, it was a tough time. And then I got home and then parked that bed inside the living room so I can see TV and be around people. And for the next months, I was on that TV. I was sleeping in there, and learned chess with my brother Mark. Yeah, it was, and I even took classes. My high school, Mrs. Nettles, Bill Nettles' mother, she was a math teacher, and her husband also very well known in Grant Parish. And Mr. Bill Nettles was my math teacher in high school. Well, his mother, she came over and taught me, and she told me, because too bad you didn't take any math this semester, because I could really help you. So we went through everything else though, and I read over the subjects, and we talk about them several times a week, and I remember the 31st of October was the first time I was out and about, and it was a Halloween carnival that we held every year at Georgetown High School, and it was my first time, and I was actually on crutches, still limping, but on crutches. And although the doctors, they did an x-ray on my foot and they saw the bone was a little bit off, they said I needed to stay off of it, but I stayed on it, and actually that's what pulled them, the bones back together quicker, I still feel it. It's still rough, that foot. I have a little bit of a different size on that foot than my left foot. My right foot does, and it's always been a little bit stiff. I know it's that later in life I'm going to feel it even more probably, but yeah. And then I got back, and I think I missed that. My cats are making a lot of noise back here playing. I think I missed that basketball season also, but I got right back into it the following year, and made the varsity team and played. But yeah, that was a tough time. I didn't go to the funerals because I was in the hospital and stuff. But both of actually Mr. Bobby and Miss Annie, and they've lost, the whole family is passed now. I mean, the younger daughter, she died also, and from complications in life, but they're all buried at the cemetery right next to my house, actually, right from the house. My dad's also buried there, and when he was buried 5 years ago, full military funeral, actually. But yeah, it was a trying time in my life, I guess. But my biggest fear was not being able to go into the Army because of it. But a little bit else. I mean, 2 years later, I was in the Army. I had passed all the tests. Luckily, they didn't X-ray anything below the waist. They'd seen what was going on down there. But yeah, I was still able to get in, and I served for 10 years. But it was a tough time. I mean, even when I got back on my feet, I visited the Dunn family, and I always felt guilty for surviving. You had the survivor's guilt, and then they didn't really make it feel much better either. They sort of looked at me as why are you still around? But I've lost all my kids, and I can understand that. So I didn't spend that much time with them. Although my parents promised me that they didn't feel that way. I could see it. Whoa, look at those two in the back there. This is the daily thing. And if you try to take a nap, boy, I tell you right now, that's what goes on. At night, they kick in too when you're trying to go to bed. They decide they want to play and stuff. But anyway, so this is what happened when I was 15 years old. And what was even crazier, a year later, my Uncle Tommy, he asked me if I could go help him he needed to go pick up a car he had bought, and if I would go with him. So I would drive his mother's car back. And this is Louisiana now. I mean, and if you've ever been to Louisiana, we get flash flooding rains like crazy. So we had gotten there, we picked up the car. He drove a different direction than I did. He did something else. I don't know what he did, but I drove down the quickest path I could get to, taking my time, and then the flash flood hit. And as I was driving down the road, right in a bend where it's the road that leads to my brother's house now. Actually, he has a house back on this road, but right in that curve, as I was going to the left, there's a tree right there also. But the water, I was in that curve, and the water had piled up there. It had really become deep, and I aquaplaned, and it sped me up and shot me into the tree, which completely totaled out that car. Now, the seatbelt I was wearing, seatbelt allowed me to go forward, and I hit, and you can see the scars right there. I hit the rearview mirror with the head, so I was bleeding all this scalpel blood. I mean, it was just pouring down my face, and I was like basically upside down in the seat when it pulled me back. And then the lady who lived right across the street, she came out because she had heard it, I guess. I mean, there was no brakes or anything because nothing would have worked. I was aquaplaning. And she came out, and I just sort of like put my hands up, and she saw me in the car, and she ran back home to call the police and the ambulance, whatever, 911. I fell out of the car. Seatbelts were still, I didn't even undo the seat, but I crawled across the road to her house, bleeding out of my face, all over my hands, just kind of like that. And my dad showed up because, of course, the scanner. And they called him to come get me, and he wasn't very happy with me. He was pretty angry with me. I got the whole 9 yards of yelling and everything like that. And when I got home, and how I totaled out the car, somebody else, blah blah blah. And these things happen, and those are 2 accidents I had growing up that were pretty major, and I survived them luckily, and I'm still hanging around. I've had some accidents since then, but nothing like those, actually, and I'm happy. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you this quick story. It's a story that a lot of people don't know from where I'm from, actually. They know of it. They don't know all the ins and outs. A really crazy thing is that years later, my last year, I guess, in the Army, I was at Fort Bragg, and I went down to the EIB range, and lo and behold, there was Larry. He was an NCO, and he was checking on his guys, his team. And I saw him real quick. He said, "Hey, why don't we have a coffee later?" So we met up, and that afternoon, I think, or the day after, whatever, I don't remember when it was, and we had a coffee. Well, he had a coffee, and we sat and we talked, and he told me a little bit about his life. Not too much though. Anyway, I guess he worked hard to put it all behind him too, because of course he felt the blame the most, actually, because he was driving and he was drunk, and this happened, But to this very day, I don't really drink that much. I'm not a drinker. I do drink some every once in a while at home or somewhere I don't have to drive from, or whatever. But how quickly life can change in just a snap, and sadly, this is something that could have easily been sorted out just by stopping. In today's age, I could have called home. I would just have gotten out of the car and called home and told my dad, say, "Hey, could you come get me? This is where I'm at." And back then, it just wasn't happening. I would have had to have walked probably 5 miles to the town and then another 5 miles home. So it was a pretty because there were no houses on that road. It was a pretty different time, and I guess I put too much faith in those guys too. But anyway, I hope that you may have gotten some from this story, and I hope that this opens up a little bit more some of the things that I've had to deal with. This whole video thing is about me getting things off my chest. It's about me finding therapy. It's my therapy, And if you like these videos, please give them a thumbs up. Please support my channel. And I like to see the channel grow, and I like to get other people involved in this also. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good day. And it's really nice and pretty outside today here, and we got some clouds here in Romo. I'm busy putting boxes together, getting packed up. I got to move in the next 3.5 weeks. And you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.